One, two, three. This is Dr. Alex Avila with Love University, and we're back. I'm an author, psychologist, and speaker. Every week we talk about how to love yourself, others, and higher nature, how to improve your life and your relationships, your health, your spirituality, and your personal self-esteem. Now, we're now in the era I call spring. Love is in the air, where people talk about love and relationships and romance. And that's a beautiful time of the year when things are starting over in a good way. But there's a challenge that we have in relationships. This is something that's been becoming more prevalent, is what we call codependency. And today's topic is, are you caring or codependent? How to avoid a relationship catastrophe. Now, the term codependent became popular in the 80s when people were talking about spouses of people that were alcoholic or drug abusers. And they were called co-addicts. They would enable or keep the person doing the addiction by being overly supportive, overly caring, but not really challenging them to change. And then it became more of an emotional codependence in many ways. I consider it to be a caretaker gone to the extreme, when you use most of your time and energy trying to make another person happy at the detriment of your own emotional and physical health and happiness, which can result in depression, anxiety, and extreme stress. Now, codependency can be with a romantic partner or spouse, or it could also be with a friend or even a family member. And this is the kind of situation where you try to enable someone or rescue them and try to help them when you suffer at the same time. So we're going to take what I call the codependency quiz. And Reggie, my producer, I want you to help me out on this. We want to find out, are you codependent? Are you in a relationship you are sacrificing yourself for another person without receiving much in return? Now, again, this could be friends or romantic partners or even other people. Question number one, Reggie, do you spend a lot of your energy trying to meet another person's needs?
Not at the moment, but I did have a friendship, and I would find myself receiving messages from all hours of the day and night or whatever, and I'd feel pressure to respond to them, even if I was working or whatever. I just felt like the pressure to be at his beck and call.
Okay, Reggie, and how about question number two? Do you feel trapped or overwhelmed or helpless or stressed in the relationship?
At the time I did, kind of. Like I said, I felt that pressure, to be at his beck and call.
Okay, so you did feel stress and kind of like almost being trapped in that relationship.
Right.
Okay. And you're constantly making sacrifices, maybe changing your own schedule to meet their schedule, to do what they want to do. And also trying to help someone who is underachieving, irresponsible, or even addictive personality.
Yeah, actually, now I think about it, yeah, he was. He was addicted to getting thrills out of people, like rises, not meaningful interaction, but just cheap thrills.
Okay, kind of harassing you to get a little bit of negative excitement.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So these are the elements of a codependent personality. Now, some of the symptoms that we see in a codependent personality are low self-esteem. They have a lot of shame and guilt. They're always trying to please the other person. They don't feel good enough. Perfectionism. They feel they're making mistakes in the relationship, and they have to correct the mistakes. Also, they're often inauthentic. They're not true to themselves. They're not true to who they really are. And part of this is being a people pleaser. Now, it's good to be a people person that wants people to feel good, but these individuals go overboard. They have a hard time saying no to things they don't want to do. Because they want to avoid conflict at all costs, they will go along with the other person, even if they don't really want to do that. And they often apologize for their behavior, even if they didn't do anything wrong. They feel they always have to please the person. They're afraid of being rejected by the other person. Now, the other part of being a codependent is that they can be very reactive. They become very defensive if the other person disagrees with them or doesn't go along with what they want them to do. So there's a sense of control, needing to control the other person for them to behave in a certain way. And what we call micromanagement, having a very strict control over small tasks. Also, people that are codependent with a partner often have bad communication. Because they're afraid to be truthful and they don't want to hurt their relationship or make the other person upset, they may pretend to go along with something and they don't express their true feelings or their true needs. Also, they can become obsessed with the other individual, with the relationship, and what they think they should have done or said. They may have thought they made a mistake. So they're always thinking about the relationship, overthinking it. And they're often very dependent on an individual or even on a relationship itself. They always feel they need to be in a relationship to feel okay, to feel good about themselves, to feel loved. And they need to feel that the person loves them to a high degree. Now, the reasons why a person becomes codependent could be several. One is possibly emotional or physical abuse in childhood. When a child is abused physically or emotionally, they become very hyper alert to their parents' reactions, to their parents' cues. So they're always reading the parent. Are they angry? Are they upset? To avoid being harmed or being in danger. As adults, they continue doing that. They're always overly sensitive to other people's reactions, and they kind of tippy-toe around them. Another possibility as to why a person becomes codependent is that they had a codependent parent who was a role model for that behavior. Maybe this parent, it could have been the wife or husband, took care of an emotionally immature spouse, and they saw this going on, and they also develop that as adults as well. Or possibly the child had to care for a mentally or physically ill family member, and as a result, they became a mini adult. At a young age, they started to take on the parents' problems and illnesses emotionally as their own. Now, when we think about this whole idea of codependent, some people think it's a stigma or label that is maybe overly applied to relationships, because in some ways, caring can be good. Someone who's a caregiving person or people person, sensitive, is first of all generous emotionally and also with their time and energy. They have empathy. They can understand other people's feelings. They have compassion. They want to relieve suffering. And they provide others with a sense of security. People trust individuals that have this very strong caregiving personality. The problem is that when it becomes overboard, when it's not balanced, then the so-called caregiving person can become codependent, where their identity revolves around the other person. And they become very possessive. They can be very jealous. They don't want the person to go out with other people or do anything else. And also they have a lot of ups and downs in the relationship. When the other person doesn't express the love that they think they need, they feel unloved. They feel down. They feel lack of worth. So it's constantly changing. Also, people who are codependent may isolate themselves from family members or friends and focus solely on the relationship, solely on the person as their sole source of emotional happiness. And finally, the codependent person can have low self-esteem. They don't feel they're worthy of love. So they're constantly trying to gain that love by putting up with the bad behavior, emotional immaturity, or even addiction of that partner that they're with. So how do we break the pattern? Let's say you are in a codependent relationship. You're the kind of overly caring person that wants to rescue people, your partner, your soulmate, your husband or wife, and they don't change. So you're stuck in this relationship. You feel overwhelmed. You feel trapped. The first thing is to establish boundaries. And people who are codependent often have very poor boundaries. They don't know how to say no to what they don't want. And they go along with a lot of things, whether it's drug use, abuse, and also physical abuse, but also emotional abuse. So the codependent person needs to say, no, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. I'm not going to tolerate, for example, when the other partner uses shame or guilt to make them do things. One of the favorite phrases of the codependent partner is, you don't love me. You don't really care about me. Otherwise, you would do what I want you to do. So the person who's codependent can say, no, it has nothing to do with love. This has to do with, I have my values and you have your values, and we need to respect each other. The other thing the codependent partner can do is to create a relationship history, whether they write it in a notebook, an iPad, a notebook, the history of their past relationships. For example, maybe their parents' relationships. Was that a codependent relationship in some way? Was one of them trying to save the other one? Or in their earlier relationships, maybe when they were younger, they started developing these kind of relationships where they want to help and rescue someone who has an addiction, an emotional problem, and it's very difficult because it takes away from their own inner nature. Once you realize your pattern, you can start to reconnect with your best you, with your ideal self. For example, engage in self-care. Now, sometimes codependent people are workaholics. They're always working. They may be someone that does housekeeping in the house or takes care of the bills, and they're constantly trying to do something for their partner. But they need to learn how to take time off, whether it's exercise, diet, sleep, a practice that can help them feel better about themselves. Maybe a massage, a facial, spend time doing stuff they love to do and being authentic. Their hobbies and interests, maybe they love working with their hands, writing, exercise, a spiritual practice, meditation, being in nature with animals or children. Whatever it is that is authentic to them and that rebuilds their spirit is very important for the codependent person to rebuild their own energy and their own inner nature. The other important thing is to practice direct communication, saying what they really feel, saying what they really need. Because many times a codependent person dances around what they want. They don't want to create conflict. They want everything to be smooth, so they go along with things that they don't really believe in. And they feel bad about themselves. They feel inauthentic. Another important thing for the codependent personality is to realize that they're not responsible for other people's reactions, for their partner's emotions. Sometimes a codependent person gets upset when their partner becomes angry, and they internalize that anger within themselves and feel they're somehow at fault for that. And I like to give the analogy of, imagine that you're in a zoo and you see a roaring tiger, and tiger looks savage and fierce, but they're behind a cage. And you say to yourself, wait a minute, I'm observing it, I'm safe, I'm behind this metal part, they can't hurt me. In the same way, say that this angry and perhaps even emotionally abusive partner can rant and rave all they want, but they're not going to hurt me because I have my own boundaries, I have my own safety, and there's nothing they can do to really bother me. And their reactions are not my responsibility. They are reacting from their own internal pain, their own internal anguish and needs. Another important thing for the codependent